Welcome to Gogoteki, Ivan. Today we have with us Ivan Landabaso, who has a fascinating journey across consultancy, tech, entrepreneurship, and now venture capital. And then became the founder of two startups, Startup Riders and Revenue Square, and now is a partner of GME Venture Capital. So it's great to have you here with us today and listen to your unique combination of experiences from selling to building companies to investing in them. So I'm going to hand you the micro and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Pleasure being here. I think what you're doing is super important. And so basically, just to a couple of notes, I wasn't a consultant first. I was an economist at the OECD, but I started as an intern and it was really fun. And we can dive into that. And then at Facebook is actually a product specialist. My first role at Bloomreach in Silicon Valley was in sales. I did sort of like a full stack sales, like started as an SDR, then went into customer success, then did account management,
So you did the
and a
full
bunch of stuff.
cycle
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
beginning to account executive. Okay.
But yeah, loads to loads to dive into. Very fun, but happy to take it whichever direction you want.
Perfect. I would like to deep dive a little bit into those experiences, into that journey, and then tell us a little bit about how that journey shaped you to actually let you into venture capital in the end.
Yeah, totally. So maybe I'll take a step back. I've sort of followed an unusual path because I've never known what I wanted to be. So I've always been very jealous of people who are 16 and I want to be a doctor. Exactly, right. I have no idea. I don't think I still know what I want to do, but sort of decided to just follow my curiosity. So I started in the UK. Then I started working in Paris, as I said, at the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, basically helping some governments in Latin America figure out how to build a startup ecosystem. I had a great boss, but the job to me was like, I can't do this all my life. I need more action. So went back to university, but this time a university that had a more dynamic startup ecosystem. And from there, I said, I need to go to Silicon Valley. So I flew over on one of my trips. I met a guy randomly at a beach and we became friends and he's like family now. He's
The
like,
importance of
he's
network wherever you make the network.
100%. Like we can talk about that later, but the world runs on relationships. So anyway, I had a consecutive, uh, I don't know, fact, like things that happened to me that were lucky. So this guy was one of the first guys at Apple, and then he worked for Bill Gates, managing all the M&A division for telco in the 90s. And he said, "Come to my house for 30 days and find yourself a job. I live in the valley. I'll connect you with a couple of people, and you figure it out." So I went over, and I managed to connect with someone in the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. Figured out there was a J1 visa, which is somehow I got it. It's like for a professional exchange visa, but at the time you needed to have some sort of scientific slash technical background, which I didn't really have a full on technical background, but I did have a master of science in information systems, which I guess allowed me to get in there. And yeah, I'll stop there. But that's how I got my foot in the door in tech in Silicon Valley.
Which is basically what I tell most of my students is whenever the people that we don't have a clear vocation, which is also my case, the way to discover and the way to find your place in the workforce, whatever the vertical is just by doing, by meeting people, by doing things, understanding what you don't like, and keep moving the needle to actually find a space. So congrats on that. That's actually very, very brave. Um, what do you think now? All these perspectives that you had, how did they influence the way you evaluate startups and founders today?
So I think I just had a personal MBA, sort of like a full cycle through my 20s. So it allowed me to understand what does it actually mean to pick up a phone and get rejected 1,000 times, like every day making 100 calls at 5 a.m. it's normal if you work in the East Coast. I'm not doing anything unusual. Like I was in California, selling to New York, and Americans. One of the best things about them is like intensity. So you're surrounded by people
Yeah.
that
And actually, learning how to sell in the United States is probably the best school ever.
100%. 100%. So basically, to wrap that up, so I basically did a 10-year personal MBA across full cycle growth, go to market, right? Then product, then founding a little company here in Spain, Revenue Squared, where we met, and then also being a VC, and then also having like a media company on the side. So sort of seeing all the angles, right? So in terms of how it helps me assess opportunities, I think it just gets you empathy and an understanding of what excellence looks like. Uh, because at these companies, the feeling was always like, wow, these people in this room are next level, right? So like, I guess that's what I try to look for in founders. It's hard to describe, but we can go into it more. But
No, that's a very good point. I always recommend, and that's something that I've been following all my career. Like surround yourself by people that you think they're way better than you. That's where you should be. No, the typical phrase of if you're the smartest one in the room is not the right room for you. It's really important to keep in mind. Very interesting, the revenue squared, because it's a fascinating concept, and I want to deep dive a little bit more into that. How did you come up with the idea, the impact that you're having through revenue square? I mean, it's just a platform that I recommend everyone to join.
cool, thank you. Basically, I met my partner, co-founder Jorge, who's my best friend also at Facebook, and we were basically building a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club inside Facebook. So we started with a jiu-jitsu club, then a boxing club, then a mixed martial arts club. So at the end, we had every day we had some sort of sports, and we became like experts at pooling resources for like clubs in at Facebook to finance all this. And we found that there's like a lot of great things that happen when you have people from WhatsApp, from Instagram, from Ads Network, and other all these teams, and learning how to fight together. It's just kind of cool. So we just became really good friends, and we knew we wanted to do something, and we just found an interesting problem. So like at the time, I had just moved to Spain. I had never lived in Spain, and he was also between London and Madrid, and we said, hey, how come sales is so underrated in Spain? Like everybody goes into management consulting, investment banking. Like the example I always use is everybody when you go at Christmas and sit at the dinner table, and people ask you what do you do, and if you say sales, they think, oh, used car
Yeah,
salesman, right? So it's like
I think
not prestigious in people's minds.
it's not prestigious. There is a misconception, and also it's because I think people associate sales with some of the cold calling, very very rough interaction with customers. While sales, you need to be very analytical. You need to be good in relationships. You need to know how to forecast. So you need to be technical as well to be able to sell the product. So I think it's a very complete career, and you're doing a great job in shifting the misunderstanding of what sales means. So congrats on that. Very happy that revenue score exists. Moving into how do you assess a startup? There are many factors to take into account. Think about you're speaking to a 25-year-old person that is thinking of moving into VC or even trying with their own startup. What are the factors that you take into account? A lot of people ask product, is it the market, the traction, or the founding team? And of course, it's a mix of all these factors. But what is the most important thing for you?
So it really depends on the stage. I work in pre-seed and seed, so it's what I can talk about with more authority. At this stage, everybody has their own little rule book. I'd say my subjective experience, it's all about the founder. The founder comes first, especially at pre-seed and seed. The more you go into seed, Series A, the more something I stole from benchmark, which is called liquidity quality matters. So not so much the level of traction, but the quality of that traction. And there's metrics, you know this, you worked at Facebook and TikTok. Now, so like you look at what are specific metrics that indicate that the flame is bright, not necessarily big. So you know that when you know, that flame starts, if it's really bright, you can set other things on fire. The classic example is Uber. When you looked at the San Francisco TAM, it was small, but when you talk to actual drivers and when you actually looked at both sides of the marketplace, like, people were actually like, I think when some of these investors went to talk with users, they're like considering selling their cars. And so that made them think, okay, so like the actual quality of this traction is, X number of standard deviations away from the mean, and couple that with an extremely outlier founder, which it would be your priority. In my subjective experience, what I would focus on. When you couple those two things, it can be very powerful. In terms of founders, what you look in founders, again, it's super subjective. I think that having been in, high performance environments allows me to understand and pick up when I'm surrounded by that type of intensity, high agency, big thinking. But I would say if I had to list a few characteristics, it would be like extreme intensity and obsession, probably early signs of entrepreneurship at an early age, unusual passion projects where nobody had to tell them what to do, they just did it because they wanted to. Highly chameleonic. I don't know if that's a word, but like someone who,
Yeah, like wearing different hats.
yeah, that you can just drop them in Singapore or Moldova, and they're gonna figure it out. A lot of the time, these people have either traveled when they were young or like their family situation were moving around. There's a bit of everything, but these are just traits that come up over and over again. Yeah, I think those are some of the most common ones that I come across. That when I see that, I'm like, this is interesting. But again, it's subjective in this world. Nobody knows anything, and yeah, and then results are seen in a very long time frames.
It's learning by doing. Sometimes it's just basically network or experience. It can vary, but it is true that when I speak to a lot of students or career shifters that want to move into tech or want to build something, I always make sure that they understand their decisions based also on a self-awareness process, in the sense that there are people that are made for corporate, and that's absolutely fine, and there are other people that after 2 years in corporate, they're bored. They want more. They want more challenges. They want the lack of structure. They want the uncertainty, and they know how to handle themselves in different scenes of ambiguity. And that's a profile that could be more linked into the founders rather than someone that needs structure, and nothing is better than the other. But it is true that there has to be a self-awareness process before making the choice, right? Also,
100%.
it depends on external factors such as vital moment, financial risk. There are people that cannot take a risk at that specific moment, and that's absolutely fine too.
Also, like, just to clarify, like, I'm talking specifically about venture capital, which is way less than 1% of all projects. That should be like most. You can be a phenomenal founder of, let's call it traditional business or amazing, incredible businesses. And I'm just talking about specifically venture capital, which isn't better or worse. Like, go start companies. We need more of that. Venture capital is unusual in the sense that it's a J curve. It's something that it's super high growth, super high intensity. It's a very small part of the economy, but represents something like 85% of all our R&D spending in the US since the 70s. Half of the IPOs markets are by venture capital funded startups in the US. I think 25 million jobs created in the US. I think most new jobs created in the US since the 70s are venture capital backed. It doesn't mean it's better than a traditional business. It's just what it is. And it's typically very extreme people with very extreme ideas that make the model work. But people should read Small Giants, and they should also read Venture Deals by Brad Feld. So like those are the two extremes, but all is good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm absolutely right. Very interesting point. People have gone a little bit obsessed with, building a startup, having a financial round, and going back to the actual and traditional SME and PYME is absolutely fine as well. Good. Going back to our favorite topic of today, which is like sales as a superpower in careers. Okay, how important is, obviously it's going to depend on many factors, but how important do you think is for a founder, even a technical one, to be good at sales? I mean, do you see sales as a skill or as a mindset?
It's probably both. Like I would say, if you're a founder, you're a startup founder specifically, but even a founder of a pyme or any company, your job is mostly sales. Like you're selling people on your idea to raise capital. You're selling people on your idea to attract talent. You're selling people to buy a product. You're selling all the time. So it's an absolute must-have skill. Humans buy from humans in the enterprise. I know that in SMEs now there's AI solutions that help you grow and like externalize and so on and enrich. So we can talk about that too. But I don't think sales is going anywhere. Like I think it's probably enhanced by this wave. Um, and yeah, like I think Sam Altman was saying something that's actually is pretty true. Not to quote him too much, but he says that when you get senior enough, all roles are sales, basically, and it's pretty true.
Absolutely agree. Going back to the topic that you just raised, with all the AI era, all the tools that help us scrapping, of course, there are functions and daily tasks that AI is definitely going to help us, especially, through their research and the lead scrapping. But how do you see the sales role changing in the next 5 to 10 years? Because, as you said, I'm a big believer of AI is going to have a hard moment in eating sales positions. At the end of the day, is what you say. A good salesperson is that one that someone's going to trust to give her or him the money, and that is a little bit of like having to be human as well.
100%. Basic the atomic unit is attention, right? That's what's scarce, and that's what salespeople need to get to. Um, it's also seeing sales in a different light. We're talking about revenue squared earlier. I think sales is underrated because it's not a used car salesman position. It's in a lot of time. In most cases, it should be about consultative sales, like identifying a problem and genuinely believing that your product actually solves it, helping people. So if you actually have, and they're working on something that you believe in, a product that you believe in for a problem you care about. um, I know some people don't have the luxury to do that, but if you can choose, or if you're in sales, and even if you're getting your foot through the door, you should think about sales as solving problems. Like, I can't understand for the life of me why you have a business administration degrees and they don't teach you sales. Like, I don't understand. This is like most value from a business administration degree is sales. So, and there's a high spectrum. There's a large spectrum of skills, and a lot of the noise that we're getting on AI is substituting sales is targeting and talking about very specific segment of sales skills. Like people think about cold calls. Cold calls are tough, but they're also an incredible skill. If you know how to cold call someone, you've been rejected 3,000 times, like that's worth a lot of that's worth a lot. That's worth a lot. And like, how do you capture someone's attention? Can you be creative in the way you actually capture someone's attention? Yeah, like this will go in cycles. Like all sales channels saturate and then others open up. So you just need to, if you're interested in sales, which is the it's basically a science and an art. Like you can build predictability, you can use data, you can build systems, you can, to quote our friend Aaron Ross, you can build a predictable revenue engine. It's just a matter of the wheels that make that machine and turn are going to change over time. So yes, there is AI automation for lead enrichment. There is AI automation for outsourcing some of your biz dev efforts to generate leads, sure, but then that opens up other channels because those will saturate too, right? So the skill itself, I think it's pretty intact, and it's probably going to become more important. It will morph, maybe sometimes it'll be, are you really good at content? Are you really good at building a personalized proposal through the mail? Are you really good at going to a conference and building a different stand? Like, the skill varies, but it's all hinges around the same skill set.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Actually, talking about the different stages of sales, I started at Google being a business development manager on the acquisitions team, and basically, even though the job sounds very fancy, I always say that it was basically cold calling. It's true that you had a backup of a really good product, but at the end of the day, you were talking to very small businesses that had no intention in joining Google AdWords. So it was very difficult. And closing a deal, being a cold calling business development manager, gives you so many skills that then when you grow in your career and you end up being an account executive, being an account executive is the easiest job on earth, but you had to be there before, where you got rejections. It was very difficult for someone even to, hang on the phone. So yeah, I fully agree in everything that you said. I would like for you to know that, for you to tell us that you know a lot about sales. Tell us your favorite sales story. It could be a sentence from someone. It could be a company that basically did like a massive sales strategy and went very well. It could be your own story as well. But what's your favorite?
There's so many. Well, I'll just pick one from my experience, which I don't think is that amazing, but it changed my life. So for the better, I just found a way to get in. I was in a very tough market. I was working at Bloomreach. She's now a unicorn, when it was earlier, and I was doing cold calls, and cold calls weren't working for me. I just did so many, and the thing with cold calls is that there's some force in the universe that the fact that you're trying to make the cold call somehow affects your email strategy or any other tactic that you're using to get those meetings, right? I don't know how it works, but it works, right? So you have to, in my case, I had to do the cold calls even as a sense of pride, because I wasn't getting any results with the cold calls, but I was selling to Fortune 500 companies in the US, and it was just a complete red ocean. Marketing technologies, now it's even worse, but at the time it was really hard to break through the noise for a product like ours, which was awesome, but just a really hard target, right? So basically, I kept cold calling, getting rejected 99.9% of the time. But I developed an email approach that was different from what other people were doing on the team. I don't think it's that innovative now, but I started getting really, really, really serious about my emails. So like I was measuring uh, every word length, character count on my emails and who I was emailing. I was spending like maybe 10, 20, 30 times longer on each email. And it was
So that's a very good strategy, to stand out from the crowd.
my emails were like personalized to the max, but really thoughtful. And most people say they personalize emails, but that's not what I mean. Like what I mean is you study an account, you find the right person, and then you study that person and you try to find someone who has a digital footprint, which helped a lot. And then you figure out exactly what that person does. So the example I have in mind is I was trying to sell part of our solution, which was a site search product, right? So imagine Amazon, the site search, when you type the first few letters, recommendations. I was trying to get into a Fortune 500 company, emailing the person responsible, first finding the right person in this organization, and then how do I stand out? So I started this person for a while, and then I built a PowerPoint deck with 3 slides, and I started every single character on the subject line to make it super appealing to them, super short. And then the email body just had like one of the slides with their logo, the before and after, like the problems they have. I found a problem they were having with their site search page for a particular product. I know more or less like the ACV on that product and the revenue they could represent. So looking at traffic sources on that. Anyway, like I made a super short, super visual, very targeted email, and the person emailed me back and said, this is the best cold email I've ever received. Send this to your manager or something like this. Let's do it, you know.
That's absolutely true. It reminds me. I always say that you need to find a way and be creative on how to stand out. It happened to me many years ago when I was living in Oman, and it was my first sales job, and I had to find creative ways on how to capture the Minister of Transport attention. So basically, I found out that he was passionate about tennis. Like, he had an obsession with tennis. So during that week, I don't know if it was Wimbledon or Roland Garros or whatever it was, and I remember watching every single match to actually take notes, to have like an open chit chat with him. So when I encounter him, he asked me how I was, and I'm like, I'm very tired because I've been watching tennis all week. And he was like, boom, directly looking at me like, wow, now, exactly. So we started talking about tennis. I had all my notes learned, and then he directly gave me 1 hour of a meeting. So yeah, stand out and be creative is part of how they should be developing sales skills. And now, moving into a very important topic for the students that will be watching us is, you talked before about how is it possible that we don't get taught on how to sell in business administration at university, right? But there is also another question, which is, how is it possible that nobody tells us or teaches us how to sell ourselves? And this goes directly into, for example, interviews, right? In your opinion, for an interview, for any job, for anything in life, basically, from someone that hasn't been taught how to sell and has not had any sales experience, how can they start developing that ability, whether it's with, an idea or themselves in an interview?
That's a great question. I think I'll say this, and 99.9% of people won't do it, but this is what my Apple mentor, the guy I told you that kicked off everything, told me. Is like, you're never going to get in through, you might, but it's not the smartest way to get in by applying through a recruiter or LinkedIn to apply. Like, what would you like someone to tell you if they're looking for a job, right? Like, think about it from, stop being so egotistic. Think about it from the perspective of the other side. So if you want a job, doesn't mean you need to write a dissertation for them, but try to solve a problem for them. Like, try to add value first. Like, do you not think that if there's a job position, there's 3,000 people who have applied, that you could stand out by just figuring out what do you think, what's your hypothesis around what's the biggest problem this person's facing right now? The CEO or the hiring manager, both, and try to add value. Like, maybe you've summarized the 10 articles that came out about their competitors in like 5 bullet points, and you highlight 2 pieces of data that might be useful for them. Or maybe you wrote an article about something that they deeply care about in their product that's broken. Or maybe, you get the idea. Like, make it impossible for them not to reply to you by standing out, by adding value first. So if you add value first, and I know this might take time, there's no free lunch, right? It takes time, but the odds are not 10-1. They're like 100-1 for you to get a response if you add value first.
Absolutely. And something to add to that, it's not about showing value during the hiring process, it's showing value before. It's making sure that you get that first step into the door by people remembering you. And people think that knowing how to sell or knowing how to do interviews is about doing an elevator pitch on why I want this role and why I want to work at this company. And it's the other way around. It's how to show value from the very beginning. I had a podcast with David Alonso, founder of Cinco, and he was telling the audience how he got into venture capital, and it was precisely the exact same example that you were mentioning. He basically analyzed 50 companies for the venture capital that he wanted to get in. And even though they were not perfect, the analysis was not perfect, obviously it was a way for the founder of the VC to say, I'm going to listen to you. Well deserved. Good. What else, apart from adding value, showing curiosity, network? Is there something that when you have interviewed in the past, you say, okay, this is something that is essential for me, besides technical skills, regarding attitude?
It really depends on the role and the stage of the company you're looking at. And I think, like, generally speaking, this, like, if we're talking about big tech companies, they look for high intelligence, high integrity people for the most part, and that's hard to get, right? If you're asking me, like, what I would like to see, if whenever I've done interviews, or like what I would like to see in founders, like I take my friend Jorge as an example, right? Like that's like best in class for me. It's like high intelligence, high energy, high integrity, extreme resilience with examples to back it up, and high agency. Like, is this someone you'd call if you're locked in a, you know, weird prison somewhere?
Exactly. That's absolutely, at the end of the day, people hire people without integrity, without hardworking values. It's very complicated. Now we're moving into the end of the interview, but I have one more topic and then the closing. So my last topic is favorite topic these days, and we go back to something that you mentioned before. So how AI, we talked about how AI could be reshaping the sales roles. Now let's talk a little bit about how AI is reshaping the hiring processes. So a lot of candidates have a lot of fear, and it is true that it's harder to stand out now more than ever. Tell us a little bit how you see this in a super competitive market and mistakes candidates should avoid.
It's a tough hiring market for junior roles in general. Like, if I'm not mistaken, looking at hiring data, it's very tough. So first of all, don't panic. When I went out to the job market, I sent like 100 applications. I got rejected by everyone. No, I think I spoke with two recruiters. Like, first time I actually sent job applications was 2011, 2012,
But that,
middle
that
of
was the worst the
yeah,
worst years for Spain and an economic crisis.
yeah.
So yeah, I fully get you.
So it's fine. I got 5 jobs after that, and none of them through recruiters, by the way. So don't despair. Uh, be intentional. Make sure you do internal work first, also, but not too much, because you can also spin on, like, what should I do? What's better? Okay, just action produces information. Oh, someone, I think Brian Armstrong was saying. I couldn't agree more. I still don't know. I still don't know what I want to do long term. I don't have a clue. Just try stuff, especially in your 20s. Your opportunity cost is low. Just try a lot of stuff. If you can get a good logo under your belt, great. But there's no one size fits all. Like, some people will tell you, go to big tech, or some people will say, no, start a consulting business. Some people will say, like, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. Just start somewhere. And once you have your feet planted, just start building. Be intentional about it. It's not true that if you don't have Google or Facebook or whatever on your resume, you can't get work in a great company. In fact, some of the people I admire the most are like, sure, it's survivorship bias, but just fail 25 times and then they find their thing and they smash it, right? So take I'm not going to say take your time, be intentional, don't worry too much about job market. There'll be a crash, and then there'll be another crash, and crises are natural part of the economy. Focus on you making yourself better. Try to do some internal work on, like, aligning skills, interests, and market. So, like, that's generally interesting. It's a couple of great books I'd recommend there, like What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20 by Tina something from Stanford. Then there is a job algorithm that I think is really helpful. I found from this investor who's now in India. I have an article on this. It's called Individual Contributor by Startup Writers. Just type Individual Contributor Startup Writers on Google, you'll find it. There's like 3 or 4 frameworks there that I'd recommend, just to do a little bit of self-assessment, because it's important to directionally go into a direction, like find what drives you, that intersection, right? But once you have that, if you want super tactical advice, it's like, okay, do that first, 2, 3 roles that could be a good fit. Then find a 10, like do your research, go to Crunchbase and LinkedIn, look for 10 companies that you're like, oh, this is cool, and see if they have those roles. And if they don't, it doesn't matter. You're still gonna, step 3, study something you can add value for those people, those companies. Hey, even if it's like the CEO of, I don't know, like a big company, or don't get me wrong, like if you email Mark Zuckerberg, you won't get there. But
Yeah.
you know my point. Like
Like with
there's a,
that good strategy, yeah.
you can get
100%.
to incredible people way more than you think through cold emails and cold messages, through via Twitter, LinkedIn, testing email tools. You can referrals, you can get to people. But get that 10 list, 10 target list, and then do like spend one day on each of those companies trying to do something that you genuinely think would help them. That's like a pretty underrated roadmap that most people don't use.
No, no, absolutely. And I always tell my students that never do anything, never stop doing anything by fear. Meaning, oh no, this person is never going to give me 30 minutes for a coffee. Well, he might or she might. You know, just try, do, basically.
If you offer them something of value, like if you ask for, hey, can I have 30 minutes of your time? No. Like, why? And I mean, I personally do it sometimes and stuff. I'm no one, right? But think about someone who's like, why would they give you 30 minutes? That's the wrong way to phrase it. Like, I want to help you with X, and I'd value the opportunity to show you the plan I've put together.
That's the thing. Like, yeah. Asking for favors and building a network with purpose, it always, always have to go hand in hand with showing value and giving back. Nobody's going to give you 30 minutes of your time just because, I've received a lot of LinkedIn messages. And when I receive a good message, like tailored, personalized, saying who they are, what they want to use me for, which makes my homework way more easier, and they create a little bit of an impact, it's easier for me to actually give them help in the way that I can, which is not always very big, but I try. Okay, the last question was going to be a little bit different, but now that you mentioned one of the books, it was, regarding giving a little bit of advice. What did you wish you knew when you started?
It's a good question. Try to think of something that's applicable to everyone, not just me. Like, I have a particular weakness, which is overthinking stuff. And the advice that I gave earlier, I try to apply to myself. Like, just do stuff and the path will open up. Like, just use curiosity as a compass. But I think that's incomplete advice. So like you get information by doing stuff, and you use curiosity as a compass, but you have to pay attention. And the problem is we're addicted to food, we're addicted to social media, we're like, these are like highly weaponized products in our lives, like our generation. So protecting attention to yourself, like not in a self-centered way, but like, what do you actually want? Like, if I asked Pilar, like, what do you really want? Like, I bet you'd struggle with that question, because you have social biases, you have expectations, you have what you think people think is cool, you think you have, like, I have to eat and make a living. But like, everybody has a internal drive that's kind of buried by sort of your prefrontal cortex in a way, because you're overthinking stuff. So what I wish someone would have told me, and I guess my dad did tell me, but I didn't listen enough, is, and this is going to be super cliche, but like, meditate. Like, sit down and don't do anything for, I'm not even saying go for an hour, which is what my dad does, like, but do 10 minutes. And what's the technique? No technique. Sit down and breathe. Like, focus on your breathing, just on your in your, like, literally just breathing for 10 minutes, and watch how your mind just goes in 70,000 directions. And go back. I think that's a really good exercise, not because of the meditation itself, also, right? but because that tells that you basically develop the muscle of listening to that curiosity as a compass. Because when I tell people just do what you're excited and curious about, first of all, that's like super privileged advice. Not everyone can do that, right? Like that's just a fact. Most people can't do that. But if you got yourself in a position where you can choose, or you can starting your career, listen to your curiosity is pretty empty if you don't have data. So like the frameworks that I told you about, and then like, but how do I know what do I know what I want, right? So like for that, I would say meditation, not the fact that you're going to figure it out meditating, but the act, the muscle of redirecting your attention to like here allows you to, when you find stuff, when you're like in your day to day and something really like generates curiosity and drive, and then you notice it. Because otherwise, if you're bombarded by this weaponized society, which has amazing things, but that's one of the bad ones, you won't notice. And so, and maybe you're walking down the street and you realize that you're super passionate about, I don't know, transportation. And you're like, wow, that electric scooter is so amazing. Like that's, maybe you miss what your like real, passion, not passion, because following your passion is also bad advice, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, some passions do not pay the bills, which is talking a little bit up like an utopia, but fully understand, and I think it's a great insight. It's a very good tip related to what you're mentioning. I sometimes tell the tip that when you struggle trying to find out what motivates you, what gives you curiosity, for the people with no clear vocation, like 90% of the society, what I recommend is to try and find as fast as possible what you really don't like. Because people get super confused. A lot of people think that they want to go straight into banking, straight into consultancy, which is what back in the days mostly people did after university, and that can make you miserable. So try to find out quick what is something that you don't like doing, because it's very difficult to become brilliant at something that you hate. Basically, that's something that I always say related to what you mentioned. So thank you so
100%.
much, Ivan. It has a super great pleasure to have you here, and thank you
Likewise.
so much for the insights. Yeah, so thank you. Very insightful. Very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pilar. Pleasure being here.